everybody, this is Keith here of Euphoria Pictures. Welcome back to my channel. Right, so this video it's going to be a bit of a rant video. And I have to tell you, it's nice every now and again to throw one of these in instead of talking about the latest physical media release. So last night I was in bed, I started thinking about this and I was like, wow, I can't believe that I've never actually featured this on a video before. I might have spoke about it on a live stream, but never done a video on it. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do it for this video. So yes, I'm going to be talking about how myself and Ellen come up with the idea of getting this movie room and why we got it. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, if you know me, you have to know that this room that I'm sitting in, it's separate from the house. We have it down at the bottom of the garden. It's down there for a very, very obvious reason, which I will get into now very, very soon. But I just wanted to give you a quick brief history when it comes to myself and Ellen and how we watched movies when we were inside the house. And you're going to find this very, very strange. The thing with myself and Ellen is we were never big into comfort. We never wanted to be too comfortable while watching movies. So we never watched them in our living room. We would actually watch it in our dining room. So we would have a small portable TV. This is going back now when we had VHS. We would have a small portable TV in the corner of this dining room. And we would use the kitchen table and chairs as our comfort. And I'd be sitting on one side of the TV, Ellen would be on the other. All of us, two of us in this corner with the TV. It was very intimate. We loved it. We loved it. We were only just talking about it a couple of days ago. And we have such fond memories of it. But it goes without saying, you know, times change, you move with the times. TVs got bigger, formats changed. So naturally we had to take the TV out of the corner. You had to be a bit more centered. But we still remained in the living room, in the dining room I should say. And nothing has changed. Nothing changed until we actually came into this room. I'm not kidding. Up to around, 4 years ago. Yeah, we were still in that dining room watching movies. So I remember it was probably maybe halfway through the Blu-Ray cycle, or my cycle when it comes to Blu-Ray, where I was so impressed by how Blu-Rays looked. I was mesmerized by what TVs were doing and making these Blu-Rays, or how good these Blu-Rays were looking on the newest TVs. And I thought it could never get better. And then of course, as you know, 4K came along. That's a different beast altogether. But I remember, like I said, halfway through that cycle, I was like, you know what, Ellen, now it's time to start focusing on the audio side. Because up to that point, the only audio that we had was the speakers that we got with our TV, and that was it. We were never that too crazy into audio. But it was something that I wanted to get into. So yes, I said to Ellen, right, I'm going to look into audio. So it's all about getting the perfect setup for your environment. So it made all the sense in the world to get a soundbar instead of getting a dedicated sound system, because then you're going into the whole thing of hiding wires and it being in the dining room. It just didn't make sense. So the soundbar made perfect sense. So I remember buying a Samsung soundbar, a nice little elegant soundbar, came with a subwoofer as well. And I remember knocking it on for the first time, and I remember looking at Ellen and I was like, wow, why were we not doing this in the first place? Very impressed with it. And we stuck with that soundbar for so many years. But then 4K came a thing. And with 4K came Dolby Atmos. And at that time I was kind of completely impressed with audio and what audio was bringing to the table. So when I heard about Dolby Atmos, I was like, yeah, I need to get a bit of this. I need to get a taste of this. I want to know what it's like. So I went out and I bought, at the time it was an LG soundbar. And it was a Dolby Atmos soundbar. Came with 2 rear speakers as well, of course. You got your subwoofer as well. Actually, tell you the truth, it's actually one of the most stylish looking steel soundbars I ever seen. As a matter of fact, I still have it in my house. And I remember us knocking on John Wick for the first time, and I was like, I could not believe what we were witnessing. It was just this sense of immersion that we've never felt before when watching movies. And I was sold. I was sold on Dolby Atmos. The only problem was, with that soundbar, I didn't do my homework properly on it. Because it only played Dolby Atmos. DTS-X wouldn't work on it. And I remember being very, very disappointed, because at the time, there was a lot of movies coming out with DTS-X. As a matter of fact, one of my favourite sounding movies on 4K, Hellfest, had DTS-X audio, and it would have been criminal to actually miss out on that. So I stuck with the LG soundbar for around a year, and I said to Ellen, right, now I want something. I was hooked into the whole sound thing. And I was like, right, I'm going to change the system again, one last time. This time I'm going big. I want the best. I said to Ellen, I'm going for the best. Going to do my homework. I'm going to find the best soundbar system out there for me. And that's when I came across the Samsung one, which I have now in this room. I've had it for around 3 years. And I still maintain it's the greatest soundbar you're ever likely to hear. This sound system could light up a small cinema. It's that impressive. It's overkill. It's overkill for a room of this size. But I wanted it. I wanted the best, and I got the best. And for me, it's still the best. I know people will disagree with that, and of course you can. I'm sure a dedicated sound system is going to be better. But for my environment, for my setup, it makes sense to have this soundbar in here. And until you feel how good this sound is, I can't describe it to you. It's something you have to see, or it's something you have to feel, or something you have to hear. Because in this room, I'm actually sitting here now, and this soundbar is probably around 8 foot from me. And this is there's my rear speaker there, that's one of them there. So you're talking about maybe 10 feet of space from the rear speakers to the soundbar. And what we've done here is we have created a dome of sound that's unlike anything we've ever witnessed before. It is a true cinema experience that we are getting in here, and it's why I always genuinely get excited when I see a movie in the cinema. I always say the same thing to Ellen. It's like, right, I can't wait to get this at home on our own setup, because it is that impressive. But yes, like I said, we got this soundbar. It was in the dining room, and like I said, bear in mind this was a bit overkill. And I remember saying to Ellen, all right, babe, we have to be careful here, because we don't want to upset the neighbours. Naturally, we do not want to upset the neighbours. So we kind of had on our heads that, you know, when me and Ellen watch a few movies, bear in mind we only watch movies maybe twice a week, Thursdays and Saturdays. We have a couple of drinks, we make a night of it. And what we said we'd do is at 7 o'clock, you know, we'd knock on a movie. I'm not going to say we blasted it, we wouldn't do that. But we wanted to get a taste of what the sound system was going to be like. So we would watch the first movie, and then come around, you know, 7:30, 9 o'clock, the sound system will get turned down. Just out of respect for our neighbours. And that worked perfectly. We had no issues with it whatsoever. So all of a sudden then, we got new neighbours in. And then everything changed. For the worse. So they were in the house 3 weeks. It was a young couple. Now bear in mind, prior to this, the neighbours that were in that house, we actually did say to them, we went into them one day, we knocked into them, and we just says, I explained about the sound system, and I just says, look, if you can hear the sound system, please let us know. And we said it to both neighbours on each side of us. We got on very well with them. Yeah, both of them came back to us and says, we can't hear a thing, you're good, do not worry about it. That was music to our ears. So like I said, the new neighbours came in. They were in the house 3 weeks. All of a sudden we knocked on a movie, 7 o'clock, maybe 10 minutes past 7, bang, 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 knocking the door. Ella went to answer. There was the woman giving out shit about the sound. And we were very bemused by this. Ellen, you know, was very apologetic. She apologised. This one was being nasty. Absolute nasty. No need to be. But Ellen apologised anyway. So I was a bit bemused, so I actually rang my neighbour on the opposite side, and I just rang it again, and I says, are you sure? Can you, and please, we actually begged her to be truthful. We needed to know, and we were telling her what was happening with the neighbour next to us. And she says, Keith, I swear to you, I cannot hear your sound system. We can't hear a thing. And we really were bemused by this, because this sound system, our sound system, that soundbar, was actually up against her wall, the woman that couldn't hear anything. So it was making no sense. So we came to the realization that if this girl was hearing something, it was very subtle. It was almost in whisper form, but it was just enough to piss her off. So yeah, we were kind of going through the motions. We were like, you know, we'd knock on a movie. Some nights you'd get away with it, some nights you wouldn't get away with it. And then what happened was, one night, I think I got hold of a movie. It might have been Halloween. It was a big movie. It was something that I was very looking forward to checking out. And again, it was only on 10 minutes, 10 past 7, all of a sudden a bang on the door, and this time I said to Ellen, you know what, I'm going. For once, I'm going to answer it now, because I'm not going to take any more of her shit. So I opened the door, and there she was, and she started giving out shit to me. And I was being very polite, as you would be, and I just explained to her, I says, look, it's 10 past 7, we're not loud in here. And I explained to her that the other neighbour as well could hear nothing, but you're saying that you're hearing a lot, this, that and the other. And I said, look, I promise you, come 8:30, 9 o'clock, it's whatever sound you're hearing, it's going to be turned down. I promise you. It wasn't good enough for her. She wanted it to stop now. So I realised quite quickly that I wasn't getting through to her, and I just had enough of it, and I says, look, get away from my door, get off my property. And I closed the door. So when I went to close the door, she put her hand on the door, and I turned around and I politely said to her, get your goddamn hand off my door. So I went to close it again. This time she stuck her foot into my property. And I'm not proud of this. I'm really not proud of this. But I reacted, and I closed the door on her foot. I did. And then she kind of retracted it, and then I closed the door. And I remember that next morning I was saying to Ellen, I was like, I'm dreading meeting her husband, because God knows what he's going to say. So I remember, of course, I walked out the front door to go to my car. Of course, he walks out the exact same time. And I was like, oh, here we go. And I kind of just looked at him, and he had the biggest smile on his face. And he just went, good morning. And I was like, oh wow, I was really surprised, and I was kind of like, I was almost stuck for words until I blurted out good morning back to him. And then I came to the realisation what was going on in his end was, he was obviously telling her, look, you're just looking for anything to complain about, and you're making these you're making these people, you're being a nightmare to these people. And he wanted it to stop, and he obviously found out that she got her comeuppance that night, and he was very happy about it, because he had the biggest smile on his face. I am not kidding. And he's a good lad. He's a nice lad. I've never had issues with him. So, anyway, we went back. Anyway, after that night, I said to him, right, babe, what are we going to do? Because now I've got this sound system that I spent so much money on, and I can't use it because of this one. She was just being an absolute nightmare. I'll tell you how bad she was. I'll give you this. This is how bad she was. There was actually a day I was out in my back garden. I was actually cleaning down my decking, and I had a water hose, and a bit of water came out of the hose and into our garden. She actually seen it going into our garden. She jumped over the fence, and she roared at me for water getting into our garden. And I remember just saying to her, and I was like, what do you do when it starts raining? Who do you give out to? Of course, she had no response to it, but that's what I'm talking about. Any excuse whatsoever, and she was attacking us. So we were living a nightmare, me and Ellen. We really were. It was misery, pure misery. We don't like confrontation. We really don't. So I said to Ellen, right, babe, what are we going to do? So we spoke about it. We thought about it, and we were like, right, let's move. We wanted to move. We wanted to move out to the country. We wanted to be in our own space where we can watch movies the way that we want to watch them. We get so much comfort from all of this. We really do. And we live very, very simple lives. Like I said, every now and again, we would like to knock on a movie, have a few drinks together, and we get a lot from it. So naturally, it made sense to go out to the country and be in our own space and never have to worry about, upsetting neighbours. So we got the ball rolling on all of that. And I'm not going to go into too much detail. Let's just say it fell through. And we were devastated. We were gutted about it. We really were. For so many reasons. So I said to Ellen, right, what's the next logical step? Right, let's get a movie pod. That's what we call it. It's a pod. Or a garden pod. Let's get one of those. And so we went to this place called the Pod Factory. And we got the prices. And don't ask me, by the way. Please don't ask me how much it cost. I'm definitely not going to tell you. It cost a lot. I'll say no more about it. Money well spent, by the way. But anyway, we went into this place, and we asked them. The first thing we asked about was sound. How well are these insulated? Do they keep in sound? And he turned around and he says, it's funny you said that. he said, believe it or not, we have sold so many of these pods to drummers. Because drummers put their drum sets in here and they practice because the sound doesn't leak out of them. So the minute we heard that, that was music to our ears. That is perfect. That's what we want. So we gave the measurements that we wanted. We gave all the, you know, we got all the blueprints, everything that we wanted in terms of plug sockets, where we wanted all of that. Where we wanted the windows, none. We just wanted a door. Because we wanted to black out this room as much as we possibly could. And the only light that was coming in was the door. And of course we bought a blackout blind for that door. So we got everything that we needed in terms of measurements. So anyway, it takes around 3 months for this pod to be built. And then they crane it into your back garden. So me and Ellen were back in the dining room again, watching a few movies. This time the soundbar was off just to keep that asshole happy. And I remember us sitting there, and then we almost tried to map out inside this this dining room how big the pod was going to be, because it was a lot of unknowns. You just didn't know. So we kind of mapped it out in this dining room. We came to the realization very, very quickly that the room was way too small. As a matter of fact, if you actually look at the back wall, these shelves here, if we stuck to the original measurements, those shelves would have been right where this rear speaker is. They would have been right on top of me. So naturally that wasn't going to work out. We rang them and we said, look, add a couple of feet to it. And it made the world a difference. So I remember the boys coming into our garden. I think it was around maybe 3 weeks before we were getting the pod delivered. They had to come in and they had to cement the ground. And I remember when they'd cemented all that and it all dried up, me and Ellen came in and we were like, she was standing in one corner, I was standing in the other corner. And we were just trying to get a sense of the scale of this thing. We were very excited, but we were still very, very concerned. And it's only that day when it got craned in, when our minds were at ease. As a matter of fact, I've actually got a video. I actually done a video on it of this room being craned into my garden. And if you haven't checked it out, I will leave a link in the description below for this video, sorry. And please check it out. It looks like something from like Independence Day. When you see this room just coming up from the trees, it's a sight. It really is. But the day was very surreal as well. It just felt like it was never going to happen. And when it was happening, it was like it was one of those you're pinching yourself. But anyway, so I remember the lads were in the garden on the day with the crane, and all of a sudden one of the workers looked a bit concerned. So he walked over to me and he was like, do you mind me? I said, I'm not looking to cause any trouble. He says, but do you mind me asking, are you feuding with this neighbour next door to you? And I was like, how the hell did you know that? And he says, I am not kidding. Since we've been in this garden, she's been up in our top window just staring at us. And she has the most sinister looking face on her. Just sheer anger on her face. And they felt uncomfortable. They felt it. You can see it. They were uncomfortable. And I just said to them, lads, I can't do nothing. She's a nightmare. But there's nothing I can do. What can I say? You know, she's on our property. She can look at whatever she wants to look at. And I said, I just hope you can work and just basically ignore her. But you're not going to believe this. I had to ask the lads, I had to ask for a strange request. Because this is how bad things were getting. I turned around and I said to the boys, lads, when this is being craned in, can you make sure that it doesn't hover above her garden? Because I can't guarantee you, if it does, she's going to run out and she's going to start giving out. That's what she was waiting for. She was waiting for an excuse. And unfortunately, I did make it a little difficult for the lads, but God bless them, they made it work. They got it done. It did not hover once in her garden. They went over to the other side and they made it work. And when that came down and when it touched ground, we couldn't believe it. The day had come. And when it touched down and I walked into this room, I realized, I was like, we're good. You can just envision everything. You know, where it's going to go, where's the couch going to go, where's the TV going to go, what's the space going to be like. It was perfect. We knew we had made a wonderful, wonderful investment. And I have to tell you, is when we got it all set up and we got the sound system in here, and that first night, I remember I purposely went, and I think I got it was a Godzilla movie. I don't know which Godzilla it was, but it was one of the Godzilla movies. I wanted something that had reference audio. And I put it in here, and I blasted it. I absolutely blasted it. I cranked up the subwoofer as well. And what I done was, walked out of this pod, and I got Ellen to close the door. Right, did I hear a sound? Yes, I could hear a sound. I'd still in the garden. The thing is, though, when I went into my house, you couldn't hear a thing. So I realised, that sense of relief when you knew that the neighbour, this one she had nothing. She had no ammunition anymore. She could say nothing to us. We were actually surprised. We thought she was going to come out and give out something, because the way that these rooms are done, you don't need planning permission because they don't exceed a certain height. But we thought she was going to come out and complain about the height of it. But she had nothing. There was nothing she could say. And I had to tell you, we've been 3 years in this room, and the novelty of this room has not worn off. And the thing is, if it hasn't worn off, I don't think it ever will. So, yes, the reason why, and I know a lot of people out there thought that the reason why I got this is to house my collection. That's not it at all. The reason why we got this room is for sound. We wanted to be able to watch movies the way that we were accustomed to watching them. We wanted a cinema environment. And that's what we created by getting this room. Now, the thing is, this pod is designed to be taken with us if we do decide to move out to the country. My original dream for this room, believe it or not, is to, if we do move out to the country, what I want is to have a room big enough inside the house to house my entire collection. And what I do with this room is I would actually turn it into a proper cinema. I wanted to be able to get light up posters on each side of the walls. You know, I wanted to get the kind of the red carpets, the red curtains. You know, even the width of this room, you could fit 5 seaters, and you'd probably be able to do 3 rows of it. I think you could do 3. I might be pushing it with 3, but you'd be able to get a lot of seats in here anyway. But yes, the dream is to create a proper looking cinema room, and I'm hoping, I'm very goal orientated. I really am. And when I've set my mind to a certain thing, I do tend to make it happen. And I'm hoping someday that this will happen. The thought of actually being able to do a video and say, I told you this was going to happen, and then show it to you. So yes, like I said, the reason for this room was for mainly audio. And it's special. It's so special. It really is. Like, to see, even Ellen does be at it, where you'd be sitting here and you're watching a movie, and then all of a sudden you can just see your eyes wandering. You can see Ellen's eyes wandering. You can see it looking around. And you can just know, I don't even have to ask her. She's just sitting there going, how has this happened? We can't believe that this has happened. So in a weird kind of way, you have to thank her. Because if it wasn't for her, chances are we wouldn't have this room. So despite the asshole that she is, and she still is to this day, she's still living next door to us. Yeah, she's one of the reasons to why we do have it. And I'm happy to report, since we've been in here for over 3.5 years now, we've never had a complaint from her. We're hoping we never will. And yeah, like I said, it's the audio side. That's why we got this room. It cost us a lot of money, but like I said, money well spent. So there you have it, folks. That is my video. Sorry for ranting on as long as I did. I just wanted to put that out there. And one of the reasons to why I wanted to put it out there is because I'm kind of curious, is there anyone else out there that kind of went through something similar to myself and Ellen, where your hand was almost forced, you had to do something in terms of your movie watching, you know, to something to make your situation that little bit better. Again, I'm very curious to hear your stories out there about all of this. So with that said, I'm going to let you go. So as per usual, if you did like what you see here, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you could leave a comment down below. And please do share your thoughts and everything that I spoke about in this video. And yeah, I hope to see you all again real soon with my next video. Until then, I'll see you soon. Bye bye.